In a significant development in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, former U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to engage in critical discussions with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday. Trump's optimistic assertion that a ceasefire will take place comes in the wake of a tumultuous week marked by fresh violence and stalled peace negotiations. On his Truth Social platform, Trump described the primary agenda of the upcoming call, stating, "The subjects of the call will be stopping the bloodbath that is killing on average more than 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week in trade." His remarks reflect a growing urgency to address the ongoing humanitarian crisis exacerbated by the war, which has claimed countless lives and led to widespread devastation across both nations. This latest announcement follows a recent peace summit in Istanbul that ended without a significant breakthrough. The talks, which were the first direct negotiations between Moscow and Kiev in years, concluded with a modest agreement to facilitate a prisoner exchange involving 1,000 individuals from each side. However, the overarching issues of territorial claims and military aggression remain unresolved, with sources from Kiev alleging that Russia demanded extensive concessions regarding Ukrainian territory. Compounding the situation, a Russian drone strike on a passenger bus in northeastern Ukraine resulted in 9 fatalities, including a mother, father, and their daughter. This tragic incident prompted condemnation from British Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who stated on social media, "If Putin is serious about peace, Russia must agree to a full and immediate ceasefire, as Ukraine has done." Such acts of violence underline the fragility of the current situation and the dire need for effective dialogue. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, who has positioned Turkey as a mediator in the conflict, expressed hope for continued dialogue between the two nations. Erdoğan emphasized the necessity of ongoing negotiations to facilitate a lasting peace, indicating Turkey's commitment to playing a constructive role in the peace process. Meanwhile, the Russian delegation at the Istanbul talks reiterated its demands for Ukraine to withdraw troops from contested regions and recognize territories acquired since the onset of the war. According to reports, these demands significantly exceeded previous terms discussed, highlighting the challenging landscape for future negotiations. The conflict's persistence has drawn international scrutiny, with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio suggesting the Vatican as a potential venue for future peace talks, underscoring the global desire for a resolution to the ongoing hostilities. As the situation evolves, all eyes will be on the outcomes of Trump's upcoming discussions with both leaders. While he expressed hope for a productive dialogue, the entrenched positions of both sides and the recent escalation in violence suggest that achieving a ceasefire may be a complex challenge. Moving forward, the international community remains watchful, aware that the decisions made in the coming days could play a pivotal role in shaping the future of Ukraine and its relationship with Russia. In a dramatic turn of events regarding the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to engage in direct discussions with both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday. Trump voiced optimism about the potential for a ceasefire, stating that a bloodbath currently claiming the lives of thousands of soldiers each week must come to an end. His comments were made via his Truth Social platform, where he expressed hope for a productive day in the upcoming calls. This announcement follows a tense backdrop of stalled negotiations. Just hours before Trump's statement, the first direct peace talks between Russian and Ukrainian officials in years concluded in Istanbul without a significant breakthrough aside from a prisoner exchange of 1,000 soldiers from each side. Trump's initiative aims to rekindle momentum toward peace after the talks ended with accusations of unrealistic demands from the Russian side, including proposals for Ukraine to recognize 5 regions as Russian territory and commit to a status of neutrality. On the ground, the situation remains perilous. Early Saturday, a Russian drone strike in northeastern Ukraine tragically killed 9 civilians, including a family of 3. The attack targeted a bus evacuating individuals from a frontline area, highlighting the ongoing violence that continues despite diplomatic efforts. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy condemned the attack, urging for an immediate ceasefire from Russia, stating, "If Putin is serious about peace, Russia must agree to a full and immediate ceasefire." Adding to the complexities of the situation, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan reaffirmed Turkey's commitment to mediating between the two nations, expressing hopes for continued dialogue in pursuit of a resolution. Meanwhile, American officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, are reportedly considering the Vatican as a possible venue for future peace talks, citing its historical role in diplomacy. As the conflict drags on, the stakes remain high. Military analysts caution that Putin is unlikely to make significant concessions unless Ukraine and its Western allies inflict substantial losses on Russian forces. Experts from the Institute for the Study of War suggest that Putin's strategy appears to hinge on outlasting Western support for Ukraine, complicating the prospects for a ceasefire. In the wake of the recent violence, Zelenskyy has called for stronger sanctions against Russia, arguing that only through increased pressure can a real diplomatic solution emerge. He highlighted the need for tangible steps towards peace, criticizing the Russian delegation's lack of preparedness during the Istanbul talks. As the world watches these developments unfold, the upcoming conversations between Trump, Putin, and Zelenskyy will be crucial in determining whether a path forward can be established. The potential for renewed dialogue offers a glimmer of hope amidst the ongoing turmoil. But the challenges ahead remain formidable. The international community will be keenly observing how these discussions evolve and what implications they may have for the future of Ukraine and regional stability. In a bold move aimed at facilitating peace in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, former President Donald Trump announced on Saturday that he would engage in separate discussions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday. This initiative comes at a critical juncture as the war has resulted in staggering casualties, with more than 5,000 soldiers from both nations reportedly killed each week. In a post on Truth Social, Trump stated, "I will be speaking by telephone to President Vladimir Putin of Russia on Monday at 10 a.m. The subjects of the call will be stopping the bloodbath and trade." Following his conversation with Putin, Trump intends to reach out to Zelensky. He expressed hope that the day would yield productive results, with a possible ceasefire that could bring an end to a conflict he believes should have never happened. This diplomatic effort is not without its challenges. On Friday, Russian and Ukrainian representatives met in Istanbul for the first direct talks since the war's onset. While they reached an agreement on a prisoner swap, significant progress towards a ceasefire remains elusive. Notably, Putin did not participate in these talks, indicating a reluctance to engage in dialogue. Trump emphasized the need for direct communication with Putin, suggesting that their conversations could pave the way for resolution, stating, "He and I will meet. I think we'll solve it, or maybe not." Trump's recent comments reflect a shift in his approach to the conflict. Previously, he had criticized Zelensky for inflammatory remarks that complicated peace efforts. However, following a private meeting with Zelensky at Pope Francis's funeral in April, Trump questioned Putin's genuine intent to end the war, expressing concern over renewed Russian strikes on Ukraine. The former president's escalating rhetoric against Putin and Ukraine's leadership underscores the complexities of the geopolitical landscape. Trump, who made ending the war a central promise of his 2024 campaign, has privately acknowledged the difficulties of mediating between the two nations. His administration's previous attempts to broker peace have been met with frustration, as the reality of the situation proves more challenging than anticipated. As Trump prepares for these pivotal discussions, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also been involved in peace talks, engaging with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in the hopes of advancing negotiations. The urgency for a ceasefire is underscored by the ongoing humanitarian crisis and the mounting toll on both military and civilian lives. Looking ahead, the outcome of Monday's calls could have profound implications for the future of Ukraine and its relationship with Russia. Observers are keenly watching to see if Trump's intervention will lead to a breakthrough, or if the entrenched positions of both sides will continue to hinder progress. With the specter of continued violence looming, the stakes have never been higher for peace in the region. In a significant diplomatic maneuver, U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to engage in separate discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday, aiming to broker a ceasefire in the ongoing conflict that has claimed thousands of lives. Trump's announcement, made via a post on Truth Social, comes as both nations have seen escalating violence, with recent reports indicating that over 5,000 soldiers from both sides are being killed each week. I will be speaking by telephone to President Vladimir Putin of Russia on Monday at 10 a.m. Trump wrote, detailing that the primary focus of his call will be to stop the bloodbath and address issues related to trade. Following his conversation with Putin, Trump plans to reach out to Zelensky to further discuss the possibilities of establishing a ceasefire, expressing hope for a productive day that could lead to a resolution of what he describes as a very violent war, a war that should have never happened. This diplomatic effort comes on the heels of a recent meeting in Istanbul between Russian and Ukrainian officials. The first direct talks since the war began 3 years ago. While the discussions led to a preliminary agreement on a prisoner swap, there remains a significant gap in terms of establishing a lasting ceasefire. Notably, Putin's absence from the Istanbul talks raised questions about Russia's willingness to engage seriously in the peace process. Trump's push for dialogue reflects a notable shift in his rhetoric, as he has recently begun to assign blame to both sides in the conflict. Previously, he placed the onus primarily on Zelensky, criticizing him for inflammatory statements that complicate negotiations. However, in more recent comments, Trump has chastised Putin for his military actions against Ukraine, indicating a more balanced approach in his public statements. The backdrop of these discussions is a series of frustrations faced by Trump and his administration in their attempts to mediate peace. Reports indicate that Trump has privately expressed that facilitating a resolution has proven more challenging than anticipated, despite his campaign promise to end the war in 24 hours. During a recent trip to the Middle East, Trump reiterated the importance of meeting with Putin, stating, "He and I will meet, and I think we'll solve it, or maybe not. At least we'll know." As the diplomatic landscape evolves, the implications of Trump's calls could be far-reaching. The conflict has not only devastated Ukraine but has also had significant geopolitical ramifications, impacting NATO relations and global security dynamics. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's concurrent talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov highlight the growing urgency among U.S. officials to stabilize the situation. Looking ahead, Monday's conversations between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky could either pave the way for a renewed diplomatic effort or reveal the entrenched divisions that have characterized this conflict. The world will be watching closely, as any potential breakthrough could alter the trajectory of the war and reshape international relations in the region.